So having completed the hull with all its features, except for there's a series of steps that go down here, and according to the manual they're part GL23. Well, GL23 is certainly not what the parts are for the side there. Ignore this, that hasn't been sanded and completed yet, so I've got to find those parts, but we'll now work on the next section. We've added the clamps and the tailpiece. They were easy, it was just a matter of cleaning that out, and they actually push and lock on quite easy. Same with this piece here, just a matter of cleaning out and pushing it in. Extremely simple to add those, just make sure that you add the right ones on the right side. The next thing after that is the rudder. This consists of two halves, which when cleaned up fit together really easy, plus the metal locks and two end caps. It's only a matter of sanding this area fairly smoothly, cleaning out the chocks for those guys, and they push in and lock in tight. Make sure you do clean it out and give it a good clean. Don't force them, you can snap them. It's only white metal, so it'll break fairly easy. So clean out the gaps in between. It didn't require much, just a very flat file on the sides to do that. To install the handle for the rudder, it's a matter of drilling a hole through and filing this guy so shoes will fit through it and lock in. That's the rudder completed. So you can put that away. Now the bits and windlass combination is a fairly complex process. I'm just about to start it. Each of the main bits and windlass holders, these are the front bits. It's a rear section of the windlass. They've been cut out, they've got to be cleaned. They're in halves, so you have to actually glue them together. So that's the first portion, is to get these guys glued, drilled, and some smaller pieces fitted in them. I'll show you as I put them together. And the actual windlass itself is a fairly complex beast, which then fits into this. So you have to build each of the bits separately, put them together, and then it all gets mounted in the front section here. It gets mounted in this front section, and I'll show you how that goes together once I've completed and cleaned up these pieces, and show you how they go when they glue. And that's where we're at. This part of the windlass consists of 4mm and 3mm piping. This here, which appears, well, looks like a sheet. So it's cut on the back, actual individual little pieces, and they have to be glued together around the dowel ends. Then these ends pieces have to be put on, and this produces about 6 different items, which are then glued together at several different stages. I'll complete this next portion and I'll show you what each individual piece looks like. Cutting out these little pieces, they've all got beveled edges, is an interesting challenge. Now we're ready to slowly assemble the bits in the windlass, and you'll see in a moment probably why it's called the bits. There are so many pieces to this little puzzle. It's quite interesting. Now they do all have to be fitted against one another before we finally put them in place. If you've done all these things in here, you'll be screwed. Basically make sure you don't install any of this stuff until you put the bits in. Now, because we've put the floor in this and all the little extra rooms and cabins and stuff, the parts as provided in the kit for a kit without that stuff don't fit and have to be modified. Right, so what's it take to make the bits? These bits, hence why I reckon it's called the bits and the windlass. Anyway, the windlass components themselves are individual pieces of wood which need to be glued together so that they'll fit over the 4mm wood. Which needs to be cleaned out a little bit. There are two end ones which contain metal end caps which need to be made. There's a set of wooden gears that need to be cleaned up, and a set of wooden washers or spacers, and some metal brackets, cross pieces that contain the belaying pins, and the actual posts for the bits themselves. Now, these guys here, the manual will show you sticking this in this side, not that side. Problem is, the bracket unit here which fits over this bit here needs to be facing the other way around, so when this and the other piece flush fit against each other. Now, they've been cut in such a way that, yeah, it's fine for one of them, but they also have a slot for these guys, which is on the wrong side, or it means you have to put these in the opposite side. I'll show you what I mean in the photo. So in the book you can see you've got a slot at the rear that fits in between these, and the piece hanging out and these guys fitting against here. However, the units themselves, for them to fit up and against it, have the slot on the other side, not on the correct side, which means you've got to put the pin round the other way for this to be able to fit against it. Just something you need to be aware about when you have a look at it. Now, because I've put all the decking in there and all the walls and doors, these pieces no longer sit flush, so they had to be cut out. So they go down the correct depth, but then fit flush against the wall. And these units, and they do now, but you had to cut a lot out on this if you've put the actual flooring and the cupboards in. Sorry, the walls with the doors, the cabin walls. These guys here, you'll need to clean out, make sure they fit the dowel in them, because that's what these guys are built over. So you clean that out and fit these guys up against it to make sure it all fits flush. And eventually you'll fit it all in here, but do it piece by piece. I'll show you as it goes, piece by piece, because you'll measure and adjust and measure and adjust and finally assemble it all. It's a fun little project with lots of pieces that need modifying, adjusting, especially if you've put all the additional cabin features in. If you haven't put the cabin features in, it's fairly easy to adjust them. Because we put all the cabin features in, they need adjusting a lot. Anyway, we'll start the assembly and you can see how it's done. Not as per the book. This stuff's fairly accurate, but I won't know till I fit it all together and clean it all out. And that's the next page here. Has numbering, which doesn't exist. But you can work it out from the parts what they're supposed to be. So that will eventually hopefully look like that. And this in here, and we'll see how we go. Cheers. The first thing we do is chamfer out cleanly these slots here on this side and on this side, and these two pieces with the locks get glued and fitted into place, and we make sure the width is correct for the bowsprit, which will fit across the top there later on. We just make sure it fits in there neatly and fits in the front of the ship as it's supposed to. So we'll let that dry and then I'll add the next portion. So now the front section of the bits have been added in. So these now go down in here and reach the back of the wall that runs across there. And once again checking that this guy fits where it's supposed to. It's quite heavy. We can now start assembling some of the other portions. There's this guy, which has all just been loosely put together on the wrong piece, but that gives us the chance to measure this, make sure it all sits the way it's supposed to prior to actually gluing and cutting the rest of these and fitting them in. This has obviously got to go down at least half an inch or more, but we do know that with all these pieces fitted, it's the correct width across there. To position these exactly, you'll need to add the other little cross beams over here, which pushes it out the right distance. But now we know that, we can add these cross pieces, and I can glue up and arrange this and put the correct dowel in it. Once this guy's all lined and cleaned up, we can go back in here, and then we can add the next portion. Cheers. Been assembled. As I said, that front piece was done. Two small 3mm dowels are inserted in there on this side, then they're inserted through, which then locks this into place. The 4 supports are added, and the cross supports that hold the belaying pins, which I've yet to put in. But that is the completion of the windlass and bits assembly. Fairly complex little beast. Take your time, goes together quite nicely. Gluing these pieces together to make the rotational bits are a bit of a pain. Apart from that, all it needs is a slight clean and a sand up and she'll be good to go. And that is the conclusion of the bits section.